By the 1940s, diesel locomotives were taking over America. They were cleaner, more efficient, and did not need an army of workers to maintain them. So all the railroads started replacing their steam locomotives with shiny new diesels. In 1945, steam locomotives still had 30% of the market. Just 3 years later, steam was down to 2%. Everyone was switching to diesel. Everyone except one railroad. The Norfolk and Western Railway earned the nickname the Alamo of steam because they absolutely refused to give up on steam locomotives, and they had some pretty good reasons. First, the Norfolk and Western owned coal mines, lots and lots of coal mines. Their trains hauled coal through West Virginia and Virginia, so they had a question for everyone else. Why would we buy expensive diesel fuel when we literally own mountains of coal? It made no sense. Hey, N and W, everyone is switching to diesel. You should too, but we own the coal. Yeah, but diesel is more efficient. We own the coal. Right, but maintenance costs, we own the coal. Second, the Norfolk and Western had built an empire of steam. The Roanoke shops had been building locomotives since 1884. By 1953, they had built 447 steam locomotives. During the 1930s, over 6,000 workers were employed at the shops. These were not just workers. They were craftsmen who had spent decades perfecting their skills. The locomotives they built were masterpieces. The Big Three classes were legends. The Class J could reach 110 miles per hour. The Class A could haul massive freight loads. The Class Y6 was a beast for heavy hauling. The Roanoke shops could take a locomotive that had just finished a run, service it completely, and have it back on the tracks in under an hour. Under an hour. Most railroads needed a whole day. And third, there was pride. Upper management was proud of what they had created. These were arguably the finest steam locomotives in the world. Why would they abandon that? But in 1950, Norfolk and Western needed more switcher locomotives for their rail yards. And that decision would lead to the last steam locomotive ever built in America. In 1950, the Norfolk and Western bought 30 switcher locomotives from the Chesapeake and Ohio Railroad. These were 080 switchers built by Baldwin Locomotive Works in 1948. Norfolk and Western classified them as S1 class, and they loved them. These switchers were great. We should build more. In 1951, the Roanoke shops started building their own version based on the Chesapeake and Ohio design. They called them S1A class locomotives. Between 1951 and 1953, they built 45 of them. What's a 080 switcher? The numbers describe the wheel arrangement. 0 leading wheels, 8 driving wheels, 0 trailing wheels. These locomotives weren't built for speed, they were built for power. Their job was to move freight cars around in rail yards. Push this car here, pull that car there, couple these cars together. It was hard work that required muscle, not speed. They were workhorses, not racehorses. Meanwhile, the rest of America had already moved on. Baldwin Locomotive Works built their last domestic steam locomotives in 1949. Lima built their last steam locomotive in 1949. But the Norfolk and Western kept building. In December 1953, locomotive number 244 rolled out of the Roanoke shops. It was the 45th and final S1 class locomotive. The workers who built it had no idea they were making history. Just another switcher. Yeah, this one's going to the yard in Portsmouth. Nothing special. Numbered 244 was special. It was the last standard gauge steam locomotive built for revenue service in the United States. The culmination of nearly 70 years of locomotive building expertise at Roanoke. The absolute peak of American steam locomotive construction. Number 244 was ready for decades of hard work in the rail yards, but the world had other plans. Number 244 was built in December 1953. It was retired in March 1958. Less than 5 years. It did not even reach its 5th birthday. And here's the really sad part. Number 244 was one of the first S1 locomotives to be retired. Not the last. The first. The last steam locomotive built in America was one of the first to be scrapped. Why? Because the world around the Norfolk and Western was changing, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. The N and W did not make every single part for their locomotives. They built the big stuff, the engines, the boilers, the frames. But some parts came from outside suppliers. Bearing packings, generators, accessories, things like that. As other railroads abandoned steam, those suppliers stopped making steam locomotive parts. One conversation went like this: "We need to order generator parts for our steam locomotives." "Sorry, we do not make those anymore." "What do you mean, you do not make them anymore?" "Everyone is using diesel now. We only make diesel parts." "But we still have steam locomotives." "Not our problem. You cannot maintain a steam locomotive if you cannot buy parts." Every railroad that switched to diesel made it harder for the N and W to keep steam alive. By 1958, the Norfolk and Western was essentially alone. They were the last ones fighting, and the battle was lost. The transition happened fast. Really fast. On May 7, 1960, the last S1 and S1A switcher, number 291, was retired. The era of steam on the Norfolk and Western Railroad was over. The tragedy is simple. None of the S1 or S1A locomotives survived. 0. Number 244 was scrapped. The most historically significant locomotive in America went to the scrap heap. No museum saved it. No Railroad Preservation Society rescued it. Nobody realized what they had until it was gone. Meanwhile, other locomotives survived. The magnificent Class J, number 611, was saved and now runs excursion trips. People pay money to see it. But number 244, the actual last steam locomotive built in America, was cut up for scrap metal, born in 1953. Dead by 1958. Born obsolete. But number 244 wasn't just a machine. Behind every locomotive were the people who built it. At its peak in the 1930s, the Roanoke shops employed over 6,000 workers. They worked 3 shifts, 7 days a week. These weren't just jobs, these were careers. Families had worked at the Roanoke shops for generations. A father would teach his son the trade. That son would teach his son. Some of these craftsmen had been building steam locomotives for 20 years, some for 30 years, some for 40 years. They had perfected their skills. They had helped build some of the finest locomotives in the world. During World War II, these same workers repaired over 100 locomotives from other railroads to help with the war effort. They manufactured components for Bailey bridges and marine cylinders. They helped win a war. And then, almost overnight, their skills became worthless. When the Norfolk and Western finally gave in to dieselization, the transition was brutal. The workers weren't trained for diesel locomotives. They didn't know how to maintain them or repair them. By 1960, most of the workforce had been dismissed. Thousands of skilled craftsmen lost their jobs. It was a devastating blow to Roanoke's economy. Imagine spending your entire career mastering a craft, only to watch it disappear. In 1955, a photographer named O. Winston Link started a project. He knew steam was dying. So he traveled along the Norfolk and Western Railway taking photographs. He did not just photograph locomotives, he photographed the entire world around them. The small town stations, the people waiting by the tracks, the rural Appalachia the railroad served. He knew he was capturing something that would soon be gone forever, and he was right. On May 18, 2020, Norfolk Southern shut down the Roanoke locomotive shops. 137 years of operation ended. The shops that built number 244 are silent now. And here is the final irony. Magnificent locomotives like the Class J number 601 survived. They thrill crowds at railroad excursions. People love them. But number 244, the last steam locomotive built in America, was forgotten and scrapped. Sometimes, the most historically significant objects seem ordinary at the time. Number 244 was just another switcher doing its job. Nothing special. By the time anyone realized what they had, it was too late. History is not always preserved intentionally. Sometimes it just slips through our fingers. America's last steam locomotive was born in December 1953 and died in March 1958. It was built by craftsmen at the absolute peak of their art, and it was scrapped in a world that had already moved on. Progress always comes at a cost, and that is how America's last steam locomotive ended, not with fanfare, but forgotten. Subscribe for more videos.